big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. In a world where everyone has an opinion, everyone opines, and moral judgments are passed a dime a dozen, brands find themselves in a tricky place. Brands and celebrities have always had a nebulous relationship, and hence the changing of hands when it comes to endorsers is no big deal. Brands today are also very quick to react to society and most given. Byju's, the edtech platform, found itself between a rock and a hard place when its brand ambassador, Shah Rukh Khan's son, Aryan Khan, was arrested by the NCB for allegedly possessing and consuming drugs. Now, given the growing controversy, Byju was quick to act and decided to pause its association with the King Khan. Well, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Brand Byju is at the receiving end anyway, with several netizens criticizing the move. It's a tricky one, and Nike is possibly the only brand that comes to mind that has the courage to stick with its celebrity partners and take a stance. Case in point being the Colin Kaepernick case. And as the rules of communication become a lot more complex, are the age-old principles of celebrity partnerships still valid? Well, to debate just that, I'm joined by Agdelo Dias, advertising veteran and former creative chairman of Dentsu, Bobby Pawar, chairman and chief creative officer, Havas Group, Harish Byju, the brand strategy expert, and of course, Mahesh Murthy, marketer and investor, founder of marketing firm Pinstorm and venture capital fund Seed Fund. Now, there are no easy answers, but I'm hoping my expert panel will throw some light on the same. I'm going to begin this panel with you, Aggie. We've seen several such cases before, and we've seen cases where it's not so complex just by, people reacting on Twitter, ads being pulled out, and this is becoming more. But the Byju's case is a little bit more complicated. Either way, whether they stuck with Shah Rukh or they've paused the association, they're getting flack across. What is your take on what Byju did, and should they have treated this a thread differently?
This part about online trolling for brands with perceived, imagined, or genuine hate for some time has been an issue. And there's one part which I've never really got down to the bottom to, nor as any brand, which is how many of these online trolls and what percentage of them are real human beings, and what percentage of them are trolls generated by bots and vested interests with competitive brands and competitive stakeholders in it. So I know, and you mentioned Nike, there's only one brand that has stood the ground long enough to find out whether there are genuine people out there or whether it's just thing. And in Nike's case, it was spectacularly successful in the business results of that year because the campaign won almost every FE award in the world. So it just goes to show that the trolls are probably part mayhem and part madness, because some part of it may not even be real people. And no brand in India, at least, as far as I know, has stood long enough to find out actually what happens, but the perceived threat of it, physical or otherwise, is enough for them to pull out. And I wish there was some brand who would, for the sake of the industry, find out whether the so-called hashtag boycott XYZ really pans out and people do end up boycotting them, or it's just a threat. I personally, and this is purely personal, I wouldn't have done it. But the Shah Rukh case in particular is completely far-fetched. Somebody does something and his father is a celebrity, and because of his father is a celebrity, everything in and around them has to bear the brunt of it. To me, everybody knows it's ridiculous. We may say it on this interview or we may not.
Right. Let me bring you in, Mahesh, and talk to you about the social trends we've been seeing and different campaigns of hate we've been seeing in terms of consumer activism, whether it is substantiated or not. The jury's still out on it. But of course, as consumers, we've become a lot more vocal on anything and everything. In this particular case, we've seen cases like this before. But in this particular case, as the brand landscape becomes more complex, do you think Byju made the right move?
It's a pragmatic move. It's not a great move. I mean, more than how it shows Aryan or Shah Rukh, I think it shows on Byju, right? I mean, essentially they caved. And there is a certain victory in caving by kind of signaling to others that, look, I am here to respond to your point of view. Not that it means very much. I mean, Byju has actually strangely never caved in to the hundreds of thousands of buzz it received about its White Hat Junior cases, or, when parents were forced to buy it under false threats that their kids would would pretty much be failures if they didn't buy Byju product, etc. So it's ironic that Byju actually caved in and stopped something where it kind of feared retribution. Now, from a class. So essentially, what Byju saw in front of them was, all right. So if I don't cave in, then I'm sending a signal that I'm pro-Muslim, and if I cave in, that I'm kind of I'm ditching the few Shah Rukh fans, but I can kind of claim. So it kind of weighed all this and said, okay, where do I want to fall on with the current regime and current government? And it took a call. It's not a brave call, but it may be one of those, trees that bend in the wind are the ones that tend to live longer.
Let me take it to Harish as the observer of society and marketing practices. Do you think this move by Byju will affect Byju more or Shah Rukh Khan more? And I just want to also take this back to 2020, where we had several stars who were involved with the NCB for alleged reasons. And, the world's, India's, most popular leading lady, Deepika Padukone, was also interrogated by the NCB and was embroiled in this controversy. But look at her today. I mean, she has brands, galore, and she's here, there, and everywhere. So who's really being impacted more?
Well, in direct answer to the question as to whether it's Shah Rukh who's being hit more or is it Byju's, I think it's neither. None of them is being hit by this. What's really happening is the situation has stirred sentiments, and somebody has reacted, and somebody has been very cautious, and somebody has been very, very hedge oriented in terms to say that, hey, listen, let me not be brave, but let me be cautious. And therefore, Byju's pulls out. Keeps Shah Rukh on the back burner for the moment. If you really ask me, I think brands, I would agree with Aggie when he says that, brands must understand clearly as to who your real consumer is. And is your real consumer really hitting out at you? That is the problem. Brands can play either to the gallery. Many brands play to the gallery, particularly in recent times, if you see the last 6 controversies that have gone by. Or you can play to your consumer. Who is your consumer? And for that, you need analytics which tell you whether the guy complaining on social media is a real human being, a bot, or a madman, because all 3 exist out there. And the third one is you don't play to anyone at all. And that is a stance which says that a brand has built a backbone of its own. And the brand actually nudges movements, and the brand is not concerned about its consumer and certainly not about its non-consumer. And, that is rare. In India, what really happens is we are a more recent social media generation. Out in the United States or in parts of Europe, social media has been there for a period of time. So the evolution has been better in the sense that brands have developed a spine. I suspect by the time we go through about 12, 13 such instances, brands in India will also develop a spine and say, I must not play to the gallery, I must play to my consumer.
Bobby, you agree? Because, we've been hearing about brands having, values, brands having purpose, but it seems like brands are just ensuring that they're cautious. And I don't think this great halo that they try to portray themselves as being bigger than what they are is actually standing the test of time. And if you can speak specifically about this case, as a experienced ad guy, what would you have told Byju? Stick with it or drop him?
I think, as Mahesh said, what they did was pragmatic, right? I think this is took out an old song by a band called Kansas. This just dust in the wind. Yeah, we live in the age of spin, where there are lots of people who are chasing clout on social media by starting moral movements, right? The most the biggest and the easiest targets of these moral movements are celebrities who get caught in some kind of jam, whether real or sort of escalated, and then the brands they are associated with, right? And then everybody is, or the vocal minority is in a rush to cancel these people. What happens is that, 3 days later, the cycle spins and there's something else and the public attention's diverted. Neither Byju nor Shah Rukh Khan is going to get affected by this. Yeah. I mean, there have been much bigger scandals that have happened across the world. What happened? Nothing. Right. So this is the new normal. Yeah.
let me take it to you, Aggie. Do you think that if Byju's had ignored the current controversy surrounding Shah Rukh Khan and his son and had carried on with him, do you think the brand would have gained or would have lost?
From a corporate brand point of view, I think it would have probably gained. Maybe it's a prudent call, like Mahesh said.
The haters are always more vocal than everybody else. It just, not everybody talks about it. Sometimes it feels like your social feed is drowning in that, right? And then the CEO gets a couple of calls from people and all that, you feel the pressure. So that also feeds into it. The other thing is also, I think, understanding Byju's case, right? Shah Rukh Khan as an endorser is talking to parents about their children and their education, right? Now, his ability to be a good father has been cast in doubt. So I'd say, in a sense, that with an abundance of caution, maybe what Byju did is the right thing. But because how does a man who's now parenthood is in whether real or imagined doubt talk to me about my kids and their future, right?
I think while I do agree that it's not going to really make much of a difference either to Byju's or to Shah Rukh. I think one thing it would probably happen, and I actually first thought it was all about that it's probably a great launching ground for Aryan as a star, right? He's got all the publicity that you might ever want.
Harish, we've seen this time and time again. I don't think consumers are also fools because, you have suddenly you have Amitabh Bachchan endorsing a, pan masala brand. And then now he's retreating saying he didn't know it was, under the realm of tobacco and he's. So, I mean, do you think the relationship between brands and celebrities need to change?
In answer, I have a contentious point of view, which is to say that this entire, brand endorser format in marketing itself has an inherent weakness at this point of time. And the inherent weakness is the fact that, hey, listen, in the older days when brand endorsers were far and few, they were trusted. And the key element of a brand is trust. But the point is when brand endorsers have actually multiplied into cricket, into literally every sport, and of course, Bollywood, what really happens is you wonder who to trust and what to trust. And also, if you look at the kind of things that brand endorsers have picked to actually promote, one has moved from the sublime to the ridiculous quite a bit. And therefore, yet another bit of hit on trust. Now, the brand is a trust, but your brand endorser is actually creating possibly a bit of the distrust. And that is my key issue, which is to say that, there is an inherent weakness out here. And the third thing is that, when a brand endorser is saying all this, the consumer today is quite evolved. And the consumer is saying that, hey, listen, I know why you're saying it. Because, there are these bagfuls of money, which is making you say it. And so to an extent, I think that that industry of brand endorser is killing itself, himself, themselves, herself, in a complete manner. So this needs to be revisited. Now, this can be revisited by saying that, hey, listen, guys, the brand endorser format is becoming a lowest common denominator way of building brands. You want awareness? I mean, brand endorsers give you terrific awareness. But that awareness deepening into that business of a flaming interest in the brand, flogging desire to possess the brand, and the action of sale, maybe brand endorsers have not been so efficient. So I think we're going to come to question it. And the last bit I want to say is brand endorsers are human beings. Human beings are fallible. We all make errors. And, at the end of the day, I think these errors are actually forgiven by consumers most of the time. It's only the trolls who don't forgive. It's real people forgive other real people. In fact, they might get much more closer to real people saying that, hey, he, she is also a human being. So this business of forgiveness is there. But when the environment is being stoked by elements who do not belong to that society in reality, like bots and madmen, we need to be careful. And I think the ultimate view is, hey, listen, guys, I mean, this is contentious. The era of the brand endorser is over. Okay, now people around the panel are not going to like this. It's over because I think, at the end of the day, for me, an endorser can make a mistake, but someone I draw, a Fido Dido, cannot make a mistake. A Gattu of Asian Paints cannot make a mistake. So draw out your mascots. I really believe that the era of the mascot is going to be back. Not the mascot which looks like a cartoon character, but a mascot who looks like a human being. Because after all, we have enough technology today to give us that realistic mascot who alone forever, and that mascot will not err ever.
Mahesh, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think from a brand's point of view, they want somebody to cut through. And as far as I'm Byju, I got an extraordinary amount of publicity by simply making the news that I have paused Shah Rukh's ads, which is probably more publicity than even watching the ads ever got in the first place, right? So I got the news, I got the buzz. That's all I really wanted. So I'm fine. I'm served. So in this entire, it's a win-win for everybody. Controversies sell ads for you. It makes celebs richer. It makes everybody fine. It's just the lack of news is that's what everybody should be worrying about, not news itself. Sorry, back to you.
You know, it's interesting that that Shah Rukh's news has caused so much flutter across. But you know, at the same time, we had Sachin Tendulkar's news out with the whole Pandora papers, but we didn't see so much of flutter, you know, with him, nor did we see brands drop him. Are you suggesting this, in a way, has a religious bias?
There are several undercurrents. There is the religious polarization. Besides religion, there's also the political polarization that we've seen not only with this, but several cases in recent times where there is the apparently big bad world of Bollywood that stands against, probably the other India, and there is also the state political polarization where the two parties parted ways. So there are a lot of undercurrents to this, and there is very clearly two sides to the country right now, and this stands on one side of the country, and I'm sure that Byju's themselves are aware of all these factors, and not just the fact that, oh my God, he's a father, and how can people, buy into the values of a father when his son is this. I don't think it's only that. It's apparent that there are various factors at play. Now, how much are at play and how much actually comes through in the trolling and the reaction by Byju's it's an open guess.
There's another angle to this. We're talking about that we're in an era of communication. Byju has decided to pause its association. It has not given a clear statement whether it has dropped Shah Rukh Khan or it has just paused this campaign. There is no official statement till date from them. Do you think it is required for Byju's to come out and speak up and give their point of view, or it's better that they lay low and enjoy the publicity they are getting by just sheer pausing of Shah Rukh Khan as an announcement?
So there's no need to turn the fan on when the wind is blowing, right? Why add to the mess that's this thing? It's best for them to keep quiet, wait for it to die down and go about their business. Them talking is only going to add to the noise. Why would I do that?
Fair enough.
Because I don't think Byju's today is just a brand that's about edtech. It's about to enter the US. They've put out a lot of PR and publicity and media hype on entering the US. So it is an international brand, and obviously they want to send out the right signals everywhere. And in that case, it's better to play safe. And the very fact that it's not really announced an official end of the endorsement deal with Shah Rukh Khan and only suspended the advertising for now is, I think, a prudent move. And possibly if it was a braver brand, it would have need not have had to do that as well and just lie low till it passes away, because it is going to pass, like Sushant Singh Rajput passed.
If I were Byju's, I would look at this as an opportunity to actually start talking. I might actually come back with Shah Rukh and say, you're a parent, I'm a parent, we all have issues, and take it from there and make it into something. If it's relevant to a product or an offering, it will, it's going to get more news and hype. So the thing is, Byju's advertising has been largely unremarkable till now, even with Shah Rukh. And I think here's a chance to actually, they've entered the click stream, as you see, and they will go out if they don't talk. So I would see this as an opportunity for them to say, should we now step up further and say, come back after this is over, bring Shah Rukh back and kind of do a mea culpa, but make it bigger. Right? There is a chance for them to do that. Again, I don't know who runs, and it depends on the leadership behind the brand, but there's an opportunity to do that.
Harish, you think if Byju's brings back Shah Rukh, how will it look? Will they be at the receiving end again, or will they be welcomed for the move?
If you ask me, this business of putting on a pause is a very clever way of doing it, because when you put something on pause, you're actually hedging. And when you're hedging, you're saying, let me watch the environment the way it unfolds. Now, if Shah Rukh is brought back at a given point of time, take it from me. there's not going to be too much of a noise because public memory, proverbially and really is very short. And we've seen this in n numbers of cases. Give it 6 months' time, and even this shall pass. And I guess Byju is going to look at that as well.
Harish, I think it's 2 weeks tops. The way the spin cycle works, there'll be some other controversy that distracts somebody else, right? I mean, remember back in the day when Tiger Woods was caught cheating on his wife and all that happened, lots of brands dropped him. What, a year or so later, he was performing well. They picked him up back again. For a celebrity, as long as you're relevant, right, and you're resonant with a bunch of people, well, brands will always be willing to pick that up. The shadow, the blemish passes.
I think Tiger Woods did not have the Bihar elections and the UP elections around the corner, as I think are probably here. So I think it may last a little longer than 2 weeks, or it may be made to last a little longer. I mean, nobody would willingly. I mean, there's nothing to it. I mean, some kid got caught doping and he's an adult. So, he's 23 years old. How does it matter? Why is his dad brought into it? The fact that it is being actively brought into the public eye, and there is a reason for that, and many of us believe so. And it is with an eye to distract. I mean, exactly what happened with Sushant. It was around a background of creating diversion for other moves in Bihar, right? And now we have UP coming up. So I do think it's going to take a little longer than 2 weeks, and it may be closer to, as Harish says, to 6 months, simply because I think UP goes to vote in March. I think February or March.
I just want your closing comments on, how brands should look at endorsers when they're signing them up going forward. Is that a format that they should look at as one of the options, or, maybe move beyond?
You mentioned about should brands pay greater attention to endorsers. I think the question we're really asking now is probably an impossible question. Should they also now pay attention to endorsers' families and their far-reaching families? Because anything could be raised up and come back to. So it's meaningless kind of debate, because you're never going to find a way of saying that nothing is going to ever happen in the future. Who can predict whose family? And in the current polarized environment we live in, it doesn't even have to be near family. It can be very far off family, and then you could pull it out and say, look now, and this person is related to so and so person. At best, you can probably have an evaluation of the endorsers themselves, but there's no other way of predicting this.
Maybe a bigger question to ask is like, how authentic is the brand's engagement with the endorser, right? Look at Nike, right? They sign up the athletes, so athletes use their products, and the same, at least in a lot of the competitive spirit, the fact that if you have a body, you have an athlete, right? You take on the stand on the things that you believe in, right? And even though when they go counterculture. So all of those things, they're authentic to both those athletes as well as the brand. And sometimes the athletes stand by the brand, and sometimes the brand stands by the athletes. Yeah.
Shonali, I see a trend emerging, and as a my final word, I would say that there are a whole set of brands emerging in the Indian context who I would call battered brands, social media battered brands, quite unfairly at times, on issues which are social, economic, political, religious, and numbers of issues. So these brands are some of the best brands in India, if you really look at it. And this started happening about 4.5 years ago. And if you look at this, these brands, maybe 9 brands I can count off my finger, are some of the biggest advertised brands. Now, all I'm saying is possibly it's time for these brands to all get into a collective, in the sense a collective of battered brands, and possibly there is a reasoning which needs to be developed to develop a brand spine, which will actually authenticate data out of social media to say which is good, which is bad, like what Agi was saying, there is real people, bots, madmen, etc., and then put together an approach to it. The first brand which actually builds this spine and stands out is going to be the next watched brand in India, for sure, but it's going to be battered as well.
As far as a brand is concerned, I think there is humanity in whatever happened. There's that gritty reality that people should live through, brands should live through. And, I think we all hope for a world where you don't drop a endorser like a hot potato because it's too hot, and pick him up because it's too opportunistic, as you said, Shonali. So I think we're in an environment where perhaps none of this is easily possible. I mean, I think in a different political and social environment, a less polarized environment, brands would have the backbone to be more authentic. Many of them have to now cut out the line, because it's good to have brand purpose and brand values and all that, Shonali, but I think the first thing everybody wants is brand survival. All of those are nice to haves. Yeah, back to you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I mean, here's to hopefully more meaningful partnerships going forward as we ourselves evolve in the marketing and advertising landscape. And here's also hoping that more brands show spine, of course, with the aid of all of you experts. On that note, thank you so much, gentlemen. Truly a pleasure.